Happening now on Grid Tonight. McLaren is joining the Hypercar class in 2027. Which drivers could be in contention for a race seat? Katherine Legge is back in NASCAR with an expanded schedule. Will this help her get up to speed more in stock car racing? Jorge Martin's injuries from Qatar were more serious than we imagined. How much time will he miss from MotoGP competition? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert. With me are Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. We encourage everyone to interact with us in the chat, support us through Super Chat, and visit gridnetworktv.com for our latest content. Now here's Josh with our top story this evening. We have a lot to talk about tonight.
Yes, finally we do. It's been such a good week for motorsport news. Good evening, Kobe. Good evening, Matt. Good evening, everybody. So let's start off with something that I've been saying for years is going to happen. And everybody on the channel knew, and everybody around the motorsport world knew was going to happen. Because after speculation and rumours for the last couple of years, McLaren will enter the FIA World Endurance Championships Le Mans Hypercar class in 2027. Now, this is McLaren's first time entering prototype ranks since the 1998 season. Meanwhile, this huge announcement comes during the 30th anniversary year of McLaren's overall win in the 1995 24 Hours of Le Mans, when the manufacturer entered 4 of the top 5 finishing positions overall. Now, thanks to a partnership with United Autosports, McLaren entered the LMGT3 class with the McLaren 720S last year, and then McLaren joined the likes of Genesis and Ford, who all have plans to enter the World Endurance Championship in the coming seasons. Photo courtesy here of McLaren. And Kobe, starting with you tonight, how exciting is it that McLaren is finally coming back to prototype racing and, of course, Le Mans?
Yeah, I think it's extremely exciting to see McLaren back in top flight prototype race. I know it's been a really long time since we've seen them going out there for the overall win. And like you've been saying, Josh, this has been something a long time coming in the pipeline for the last couple of seasons. You know, ever since they announced this new prototype formula of the LMDH and the LMH platforms, we kept wondering, when is McLaren going to come back? And now we finally got the answer. As Zach Brown said in the press release, the shortest press release I've seen in a very long time. All it basically said was, we're back. And in a big fashion. It's going to be fun to see McLaren going up against the other manufacturers in the World Endurance Championship and see what they're able to do. It looks like United Autosports, Zach Brown's team, is going to be the one obviously running this program. And United, you know, they're a highly professional organization, has found lots of success over the years. And I think there'll be a great organization to run this McLaren Hypercar program. And you know, you mentioned got Genesis and Ford coming as well. It seems like the golden era of prototype racing it's gotten even better over the years with more manufacturers showing interest. It makes me wonder, how big could this get? It seems like it's gonna, you know, be a lot of fun following the World Endurance Championship and IMSA as well in the next few years. I think it's really good for the sport that McLaren is going to be competing for the overall win in the 24 Hours Le Mans once again come 2027.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Big news. McLaren back at the top line of prototype racing, and with, as Kobe mentioned, a big successful team in the prototype ranks in United, who have won numerous races and championships in the European Le Mans series and further afield as well, Asia, and they've been successful at Daytona as well in the past. So big news. Obviously, either Zach or the McLaren team have been watching Moana 2, because we're back. That was the first thing that sprung to my mind. This is what happens when you've got young children in the house. But big news for them to coming back. We talked about Ford, didn't we, a few weeks or so ago, and we talked about Genesis before Christmas. Obviously, we've got Aston Martin coming in this year. Every point possible, everybody now, it looks like, is wanting to be at Le Mans, wanting to be in the WEC, and then with this, dual regulations we've seen over the last couple of years with the WEC and IMSA, it opens the doors for people to go and pick and choose their little races, to go and do the Rolex 24, go and do Sebring as alongside their World Championship schedule. Really does. We've said it for a couple of years. We are in a golden period of prototype and sports car racing, and it does only seem to be getting better with every announcement that we get that yet another manufacturer is coming to play in the WEC. Fabulous news to have McLaren back. And as you said, Josh, this has been doing the news rounds for 18, 24 months, perhaps, that they were flirting with this idea. And as I said, great to have Richard Dean and United Auto Sport all tied up in this as well, which makes absolute sense. So, very, very positive news, and a big coup again for the people at the top of the WEC.
Yeah, it was like a mid-season finale, wasn't it? We've been teased about the return of McLaren to the World Endurance Championship, but similar to the Ford announcement, McLaren didn't mention anything about entering the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Now, the McLaren CEO, Zach Brown's, of course, United Auto Sports Organization, currently competes in IMSA, WEC, and the European Le Mans Series. Now, given the organization's programs across the globe from LMP2 to LMGT3, they'll have plenty of quality of drivers to choose from, whether it's someone currently under contract with them or other big names in sports car racing. For the endurance races, McLaren will have options to give its Formula One, Formula E, and IndyCar drivers opportunities to compete in the crown jewels. But Matt, go back to you on this one. Like Ford, would you also be surprised if McLaren doesn't race on IMSA? And do you anticipate United Auto Sports drivers, both past and present, being front runners for a hypercar seat?
Yeah, perhaps. We've got some technical issues going on behind the scenes here tonight. So hopefully everyone can hear us okay. Sam Bird was first to put his hand up, wasn't he? I saw that story doing the rounds yesterday. Yes, please. I'll come and have a go. So, yeah, they've got the driver pool is massive. And 3 years down the line, who knows where the current crop of Formula One drivers could be in and around the McLaren areas and spheres. And we've been talking about the world champion, perhaps doing a move or two. Maybe he could be in the frame. Could they be racing in IMSA? I mean, it's open. We've seen Lamborghini sort of dovetail both last year, and now they've gone just to do IMSA this year because the WEC you have to have 2 entries, and when they've only got 1 car at Lamborghini, so they're sticking with their IMSA program for this season at the very least. But it would be great to see. I mean, Ford, you would imagine they would be in IMSA in some shape or form, even if it's just for the Michelin Endurance Cup races once they get going. And I mean, Zach Brown is one of the biggest motorsport fans as a team principal you could want for. So he would love to have a crack at Salem 6 hours of the Glen, Sebring 12 hours, and of course Daytona, and even Petit Le Mans and Indianapolis, Road America. We talked about the IMSA schedule, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago, where these races are going to entice people to come and play, not just for drivers but for manufacturers as well. So if the schedules all align properly, and that's one of the big problems with all these big sports car championships going on at the same time across America and Europe, mostly during the summer months, then why wouldn't McLaren want to come and have a go in the big American races alongside their WEC program?
Yeah, man. I'd also be very surprised if McLaren did not race in IMSA either. I mean, like, they already got United Auto Sports competing in LMP2, so they already have experience in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. And also to your point with Ford, I know we talked about this last time as well when Ford made the announcement that we're going to Le Mans, how they didn't say in the press release that we're going to IMSA, but given that Ford was an American manufacturer, it wouldn't make sense for the American manufacturer not to compete in the American-based sports car racing championship. So I'm sure they'll be along, and knowing Zach Brown and how he really wants to compete and win the biggest races in the world, I would not be surprised to see McLaren in IMSA as well. They're obviously going to be in the World Endurance Championship full-time in 2027, as you were saying with Lamborghini. Maybe it'll be like full-time over there, and then maybe we'll see McLaren run the Michelin Endurance Cup races in 2027 while focused on the World Endurance Championship, and maybe could see McLaren race full-time later on in IMSA. And in regards to drivers who could potentially be in line for the seat, I know the report you're talking about, Matt, because I read it yesterday on Sports Car 365. Sam Burt talking about how he missed racing in sports cars and all of that. But hard to do nowadays with this Formula E schedule. But I'm sure Sam Burt would be a really good fit for that McLaren Hypercar seat, whether it's a race seat, or just an enduro only seat, or just helping with the development of the car. That's something that he would probably enjoy. And over the years, United Auto Sports has some really good drivers. They've had Philippe Albuquerque, who's currently with Wayne Taylor Racing in Cadillac. They've also had Phil Hansen as well, who's also been getting some experience in, the GTP class in IMSA and all of that. Oliver Jarvis, been driving with them. Paul DeResta as well. Alex Lynn's with Cadillac. I believe he was with Jota Sport right now in the World Endurance Championship. And Paul DeResta is I believe he's currently stuck with Peugeot, unfortunately, which really isn't going as planned. So maybe he could be enticed to come back to the United Autosport stable and drive for McLaren. But yeah, there's a lot of options of who could potentially drive this car full time. But thinking about some of the big marquee endurance racing events on the calendar, not just the 24 Hours of Le Mans, but the Rolex 24 at Daytona, the Mobile 112 Hours of Sebring, the Sailing 6 Hours of Glen, Motul Petit Le Mans, and of course, we got the Enduro next year at Road America, which is going to be really exciting for some of the drivers who typically don't get to compete at Road America. And I wonder, especially for the Rolex 24, I wonder if you could attract some drivers from, Formula One. And Lando Norris has done the Rolex 24 in the past, so maybe you could see him. I don't know about Oscar's interest in sports car racing. Sam Burke, former lead driver, already mentioned, and then they have a interesting group in IndyCar drivers as well, like Pat O'Ward. He's run the Rolex. I'm sure Christian Lundgaard will be willing to give that go, and even Nolan Siegel has experience in sports car racing as well. So no shortage of drivers from McLaren to choose from. I'm sure a lot of people will be very excited, to see some of the drivers from F1, formerly or IndyCar, in those lineups, at least for the Enduros.
Here's a name that's already in the United family that has prototype experience with big manufacturers, Audi, Mazda. Oliver Jarvis, he's still got some years in him, and he's kind of fallowed himself away in the European Le Mans series for the last couple of years. Could he? Yeah, he'd be a great man to have with some big manufacturer experience in that team. Maybe obviously McLaren will want at least one British driver in the team, maybe more. You would feel like, so potentially Mr. Jarvis would be in line for a seat. But you mentioning United, Kobe, just sprung that to mind. Hello to Omi, who's watching on.
There's a couple as well who could run up, because I don't want to spoil it in case Kobe's written it later on in the script. I will now hastily look down to his part before I even start talking about it. He has not. Good. So we had the news that yesterday James Barclay is leaving as team principal at Jaguar in Formula E. Now we did wonder where he was going, because there was one rumor going around the touring cars yesterday that he could be in line with Cadillac, because Cadillac are interested in joining the Touring Car Championship. And could he lead up their front? Because there was a couple of things being talked about. But now I'm starting to wonder is if he's been pinched away by McLaren to become their team principal in the WEC, which would make more sense, because James Barclay is a Jaguar man, but he also is a WEC man. He knows how to do it. So I don't know, just could be quite interesting now. Would that work?
Yeah, maybe. I hadn't seen that news, so that's it's possible.
We had people talking about it. Go.
Yeah, I think I saw that on the media outlet called The Race. I think they were the first ones to report it. I don't think it's been announced by Jaguar officially that he's leaving their Formula E program. So but I trust The Race's reporting, because they're extremely credible media outlets. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be announced, within a short-term future.
But Sam Smith of The Race is probably the leading Formula E man, isn't he, in the paddock?
Yeah,
pretty much.
Really good journalist.
Cadillac is joining F1 in the next few years. Well, I can sort of confirm, by the way, what The Race are reporting, because I got told by Pico, and then I got the email as well. So maybe it hasn't been announced just yet, but it is true. So, yeah. Oh, well, there we go. We can confirm the racing story. People in the 21st century want source.
It's a Grid Tonight exclusive.
Yeah, I can confirm that. I didn't know that was public knowledge. That's what you get when you hang around with journalists and you don't get told that. Okay, moving on swiftly before we get the Jaguar bosses banging at our door. With the AAA Red Bull Ampol racing team switching to Ford in 2026, Chevrolet has named Team 18 the manufacturer's new homologation team in the Repco Supercars Championship. Now, Team 18 beat out the likes of Airbus Motorsport, Matt Stone Racing, Brad Jones Racing, and Premier to become Chevy's lead organisation next season. Now, despite Team 18 being named the homologation team, Chevrolet plans to form an alliance among all teams carrying the bow tie to strengthen the General Motors program in supercars. Now, Chevy supercars teams and drivers will also get opportunities to compete outside of supercars, which includes having more direct relationships with NASCAR teams as well. Now, in a statement, Team 18 mentioned its humble beginnings as a single car organization, which later expanded to 2 cars, and now they get the honor of being chosen to represent Chevrolet on the biggest stage in supercars. Photo there, courtesy of Team 18 itself. Kirby, coming back to you on this, did Chevrolet make the correct decision to choose Team 18 as the new homologation team for General Motors? And will they likely be landing the spot to take over Craig Loudon's wildcard program for the Enduros?
Yeah, for me, this came across as a surprise. I mean, when you look at the current Chevy teams, I'm not trying to sound mean by saying it, but there really wasn't much to choose from, right? Yeah. So Chevrolet, in a way, they're trying to rebuild. Well, not rebuild. I guess revamp and try to keep the same level of performance that I had. With AAA being the homologation team, and it's interesting reading this press release. They were basically saying that that we're going to work closer together, all the Chevrolet teams, so we can maintain a high level of performance in the Supercars Championship. So it looks like it's going to take all of them just to replace one team, since AAA was just that dang good of an organization. So for Team 18, this is massive for them. I've read their story of how they came about, starting as a small single car team, then getting 2 cars and continuing to improve performance year in and year out. So it's fantastic, given all the hard work that ownership group has done over the years, and to get to where they are now, that's impressive that they're able to become the homologation team. When you're replacing AAA, that's a hard act to follow, but I'm sure they'll be given the best resources possible to try to go out there, and be that flagship team for Chevrolet. But based on what we've seen so far from this organization this season, I think they've done a pretty good job, all things considered, especially with that number 18 car of Anton De Pasquale, which you just saw on the screen. He looked really good this past weekend in Taupo in New Zealand. Yeah, and I think that this will benefit him, joining, being a part of the homologation team. But for his teammate David Reynolds, not really sure what's happening with him this year. His car, on the other hand, it's been slow. He's had bad luck and just hasn't gotten the finishes that you thought that David Reynolds would get, because this is really having a rough season in that sister car as Anton De Pasquale's teammate. And in regards to Craig Lowndes, would not be surprised if Team 18 ends up taking over his wildcard program, since Craig Lowndes, as we previously reported, he decided to stay with General Motors and Chevrolet instead of, follow AAA over to Ford. So I'm sure that's where Lowndes will end up going, but who knows, maybe one of the other Chevrolet teams will end up, taking Lowndes on. And Josh, you mentioned all the Chevy teams right now. It seems like Chevrolet might lose one of those teams, because I know Brad Jones Racing recently been linked to becoming the second Toyota team next year, alongside Walkinshaw and Andretti United. But yeah, interesting decision to make Team 18 the new homologation team for GM.
Yeah, like you, Kobe, this shocked me. At the back end of last year, after the Toyota coming in announcement happened, when was that? September? Yeah, it was Sandown weekend. So yeah, it was September. So from sort of there until Christmas, the rumbling of there being a second Toyota team pointed all fingers were pointing towards Team 18, who have been sponsored quite heavily and for quite a long time by Toyota forklifts over the last few years. So there was already I know it's a very loose one, but there was already a Toyota tie-up there. But it's gone the other way, and they're now going to be the Chevrolet team. Erebus probably now, if you take AAA out of the Chevrolet power rankings, I suppose, because we know they're going to Ford, as you mentioned, probably puts Erebus as the top Chevrolet team. They're building chassis for DJR, who are a Ford team, so perhaps that wouldn't work. So that knocks them off the list. So yeah, it goes down to Charlie Schwerkow and Team 18. Yeah, it's going to be big for Chevrolet. I like that line about them having, more opportunities for their drivers to go and do other things. We saw Brock Feeney at Martinsville a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, he would end up being a Ford driver if he stays with Triple Eight, which we imagine he will. So if he wants to do some NASCAR stuff in a Chevrolet, then he needs to get a wriggle on over the next year or so and get that done. But perhaps it would open up potential for some GT3 Corvettes to race in GT World Challenge Australia. We saw one of them winning. We'll talk about it when we get to the EPI update in a minute. We saw one of them winning in Asia over this past weekend. I think that's the first Chevrolet GT3 win outside of the States. So there's that. You mentioned BJR, Brad Jones Racing. So Toyota would want a second team with the 2 Walkinshaw cars and perhaps 2 others. Well, if it's going to be Brad Jones Racing, they're currently running 4 cars. So we could see 6 Supras on the grid in the coming time if BJR end up getting the deal to be the second Toyota team, because you can't imagine. Well, maybe they'll scale it back slightly, much like Tickford have done over the last couple of years with Ford, because they were, of course, running 4 cars not so long ago. Now they've scaled down to the 2 for Tommy Randall and Cam Waters. So, all up in the air with where the Toyota second team comes from, because Team 18 have taken themselves off the table and signed up with Chevrolet to be the homologation team. Big for that team going forward. They've been in the sport for quite a while, but this is the next. And they've not won that many races, really, even thinking about it. Winterbottom won a couple of years ago at Hidden Valley, but they've not been the most successful, certainly not in terms of Erebus, Tickford, Triple Eight, those kind of, that realm of teams, DJR. So, yeah, interesting to see how they go, and interesting to see what that does for Chevrolet, because perhaps they could be going down to be the 3rd manufacturer of Toyota come in and do big things. That's a good one from Denver. That was news that broke today. The Velo Adelaide 500 was over the last couple of years. Velo, a lighting company in Australia, have gone into administration, and because it's now not 500 kilometers this year, it's going to be 600. It's now going to be called the BP Adelaide Grand Final going forward, which is cool. I like that idea. It's going to be good. And Denver picking up on the Lounsey thing. He's going to be with GM, as we know, and you mentioned it, Kobe. Super Cheap Auto, of course, on that car. That's going to be interesting to see where that ends up landing, because there's going to be a lot of people in team land that will want Craig Lowndes to be, in some shape or form, part of their team.
Bogfini going to race in Chicago as well for Carl Racing, which I think is going to be quite interesting. Chicago is going to be another wild card, but I think we mentioned it either on air or just off air last week that they've moved the start time, so it's going to be, oh dear, a little bit easier. I'd love to say I can see you two, but the monitor that you're on decided to turn off, and currently I have absolutely no idea what's going on, no script. These technical issues are still plaguing us. So, off best recollection, you've come back. Excellent.
It's like the Bahrain Grand Prix all over again.
I know. We're sponsored by Tag Heuer this evening.
Thanks, George Russell.
Everywhere. Honestly, that was crazy. Why that didn't get a red flag, I have no idea. But he should have been out of it. And if the timings don't work, it's a safety issue. We were stopped a couple of years ago because of it. They really need to get that fixed. And I don't know what's happened this year, but timings are going wrong, sensors are going wrong, information's going wrong. And it's all linked because they've changed to Tag Heuer. So they should really get a move on. Okay, back in action. In a story first reported by Dustin Long from NBC Sports, Katherine Legge announced a 12-race NASCAR schedule. Now, Legge and her sponsors were previously pursuing a seat for next month's 109th Indianapolis 500, but they've shifted gears to NASCAR instead. Now, she'll compete in 7 Xfinity Series races for Jordan Anderson Racing, starting this weekend at Rockingham Speedway. I know I've promised as well, Matthew Owens, that I'd pronounce it like that, and then he's going to pronounce it as Rockingham. In the number 32 Chevrolet, alongside teammates Jeb Burton and Blaine Perkins. Then Legge will make additional Xfinity starts at Talladega, Texas, Charlotte, Nashville, Atlanta, and Indianapolis. Legge will also return to Live Fast Motorsports in the number 78 Chevrolet for 5 races in the Cup Series, with 4 of those being on road courses at Mexico City, Chicago, Sonoma, and Watkins Glen. After that, Legge will run her first Cup race on an oval since her debut earlier this year at Phoenix. Now, Legge will compete at Richmond Raceway on August the 17th as well. ELF for Elf Cosmetics, Drop Light, Sharefic Companies, and Denosa Tequila will sponsor her NASCAR program throughout the year. Legge told NBC Sports that she doesn't think that it was fair to be vilified for making that one mistake that ruined Daniel Suarez's race at Phoenix, and wants to prove that she's a damn good race car driver with this expanded NASCAR schedule. Link to this article is in the video description below, and graphic courtesy there of Elf Cosmetics, or ELF. We never know the two. As well, come in. Well done. Yes, thank you, behind the mic. That's Matthew. You've got to call it Rockingham then. So, because I've been calling it Rockingham, as I was pronounced. Okay, should Katherine Legge's NASCAR schedule allow her to learn and develop her skills in stock cars to better prepare for her next Cup Series oval race at Richmond?
Yeah, looking forward to the races this weekend at the Corby International Speedway. If it was in the UK, that's where it would be. Yes, good. Excellent news for Kat to be back. It would have been a shame if that race at Phoenix would have been a one and done deal, because the way it worked out, and we talked about it at the time on the show a month or so ago. But this is good news, and she is, as you said, Josh, a damn good racing driver, the fastest woman in history at Indianapolis. Was run very well there in the past when she's not been caught up in other people's incidents in the races or in practice, as we've seen over the last few years. But when she gets in the race and gets going, she's very, very good. And she's got plenty of skills. We've seen that in IMSA as well, where she's been very, very fast in GTD over the last few years with the Acura program, but now turning her attention to NASCAR, kind of sort of semi full time, I guess we could say, with this. But more Xfinity races. I think that's what we said at the time. I think either previous to or prior to the Phoenix or after it, when we were discussing it on the show, to get her in some Xfinity races and just get her some more seat time. We talked about this with Connor Zilic, didn't we, last week doing the 600? More seat time is just great for everyone involved, and for Kat to get all these races under her belt in some shape or form. I don't think it matters really if it's Xfinity or Cup. I guess the spotlight is turned up much brighter if it's in the Cup Series. But if she's just doing the job in Xfinity, picking off a couple of, just taking it slowly, top 20, top 15 perhaps, the level is slightly different, as we know, in the Xfinity Series against the top guys in the Cup Series. But chance for her to learn. We know the Xfinity car and the Cup car are very much different as well. So that will put her, and she's multi-talented, as I said, but she's driven pretty much everything in the last 10 to 15 years, including at Pikes Peak of all places. So she's, I think it looks like up for the challenge. She's got plenty of backing behind her, which is also good, which probably means we won't see this program fall apart 3/4 of the way through, and she'll get all these races in, and then see what the future brings for next year. I guess all we can say is it's positive, and let's hope it turns into a positive for her and for the team.
I love what Denver's put here. Get rid of one of the Bristol races and bring back Rockingham Speedway is in the NASCAR schedule. I agree with you there as well.
Sold out on Saturday for Xfinity.
I know. Come on, it's obvious. Bristol isn't sold out, and yet Rockingham is. I think we know where we should go. I've got figures out because I'm just spotting how many are left inside the FIA. Yeah, it's looking quite empty over there.
It's time for our 99% permanent feature now of FIA Watch in segment 3 of the show.
Okay, are you ready? Are you sitting comfortably? In a continuation of the revolving door at the FIA, Robert Reid, the FIA Deputy President for Sport, has resigned from his role. When FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem was elected to his position in 2021, Reid was a key member of Sulayem's leadership team that helped him get elected. However, since those days, the two men have reportedly had a falling out due to all of the issues and turmoil caused by Sulayem. In a statement, he said, "After deep reflection, I have made the difficult decision to resign as FIA Deputy President for Sport. I took on this role to help deliver greater transparency, stronger governance, and more collaboration, more collaborative leadership." There we go, got that in the end. Over time, those principles have been increasingly set aside, and I can no longer, in good faith, remain part of a system that no longer reflects them. Stepping away was not easy. However, staying would have meant compromising what I believe in. This is about principles, not politics. Motorsport deserves leadership rooted in integrity, accountability, and respect for process. That's the minimum standard we should all expect and demand. That was from Robert Reid. I mean, even without Mohammed Ben Sulayem, has he even heard of the FIA before? I mean, at least 3 of those things I've known. And good faith. What was it? Transparency? No. Stronger governance? No. Leadership? No. I mean, come on. The FIA has never really been this great. This is the worst one for a while. Now, the FIA said they were grateful for Robert Reid's contribution to the FIA and to motorsport more widely. The FIA has exceptionally robust cooperative governance policies which guide our operations and ensure our rules, practices, and processes are adhered to. I can barely get through that without giggling. According to Andrew Benson from BBC Sport, with Sulayem up for re-election later this year and nobody challenging him yet, there is believed to be at least one other person preparing a presidential campaign to become president of the FIA. The link to this is in the video description below. It's getting worse all the time, isn't it? What does it say about the current state of the FIA with another departure, especially someone closely aligned with Sulayem? This is a key for people who don't know to JD Vance resigning and leaving Donald Trump right in this instance in time.
Yes, it's really crazy that Mohammed bin Sulayem's right-hand man has effectively, left him hanging out to dry. And it just goes to show that the FIA is, continuing to be in chaos. I know it seems like this is almost a weekly or a monthly segment during the show where we're talking about yet another departure from the FIA, and from now until Election Day later this year for the next term for the FIA president, we're probably going to be talking about even more departures given the way things are going. I think that the list is, is currently on a big scroll, and it's currently going out the door. It's so long, given all the people who have left. The FIA, I know George Russell said over the last weekend, talking about this departure, he was saying we're all wondering what's next with the FIA, or I guess he meant who's next, because it seems like they're just dropping like flies, every now and then. I just don't understand actually I do understand what the issue is. It's Mohammed bin Sulayem is just crazy when it's someone like this who was on his campaign, to help him get elected, ended up leaving here, right, in an election year. And whoever this one person is potentially planning to run against Sulayem, in this year's presidential campaign, I have a feeling that a lot of people will be ready for change, be like, I don't care who you are, just be better than him and you have my vote. But in all seriousness, in order to beat him in an election, you have to give people something to vote for instead of something to vote against. You just can't be like, I'm not Mohammed bin Sulayem. I'm not this guy that most people don't like, so vote for me. Because that's not good enough. You have to give people a reason to vote for you. But I would love to see more candidates, see what they want to do, but they can't get any worse than what we have right now, right? It's just been a completely chaotic time in the FIA, and hopefully, if Sulayem doesn't win re-election and we get someone new, we'll love to see a lot more stability, because right now it's a very unstable organization and it's just extremely chaotic.
Yeah, fair play to Robert Reid for coming out and saying what he said, and kind of taking a stand really against what we've been talking about over the last 6 months, feels like forever, on this show, of what's been going on with MBS. Robert, he's a world championship winning co-driver. He knows the sport, and he's been doing this for a very long time in this role and others within the FIA. And of course, he's got the ear of David Richards, or David Richards has got the ear of him, who's the UK representative to the FIA with Motorsport UK. And David put out a statement, that was Thursday, I think, last week, just after we'd done the show, about similar thing. And then we had the bombshell that Robert was leaving. Kobe, I need to just pick up on something you put in the script here, and I'll read what it should say, if I can find it. Here we go. The FIA said they were grateful for Robert Reid's contribution to the FIA. And then what it should say is, and hoped that the door wouldn't hit him on the way out. because it's a swinging door, isn't it? It's a lot of people being hit by that door as it goes round in circles. Really is going to be interesting. I don't know when deadlines are or dates for who's going to be next, because I feel like we're going to have a bit of a fallow period now. Perhaps, maybe, let's hope so, for goodness sake, until we get into the summer, and then we've got Susie Wolf. Fingers crossed. Or others. Maybe even she can, collaborate with Robert Reed, and he can go against his former boss in a takeover ordeal, like some kind of film. That'd be cool. I'm going to burn a quick hot for Hots and Knots later while we're talking about MBS. After the Grand Prix on Sunday, he was obviously there in Parc Ferme, shaking hands with the drivers as they got out of the car. I don't know if anyone else clocked this. Lewis Hamilton walked past. He put his hand out to shake Lewis's hand, and he completely blanked him and went to get himself weighed. And I just laughed. I thought it was very, very funny. I don't know if Lewis meant to do that on purpose or just wanted. Yeah, exactly that, Kobe. He was standing there with his hand out to shake all of the drivers' hands, and Lewis completely blanked him as he got out of the car, still with helmet on and all that get up. But that was a point and laugh at the telly moment from the weekend.
I'm loving it. And I did do some digging, by the way, because I've noticed in all FIA events right now, the green flag and the checkered flag that start the races and end the races have had the FIA logo put onto them. And guess who ordered that to be done? Yeah, the egomania of this man knows no bounds as well. So not the greatest. And to be fair, I did see that. It was just as me and Megan were leaving the commentary before MotoGP, and I burst out laughing. Quite funny to see him do that. But yeah, well, you said about a bit of a calm period. Oh, no. This is just the beginning. Okay.
Wishful thinking on my part.
Yes, it is. It's just the beginning. He'll be left with no cabinet. It'll be a dictatorship for sure. Okay, so we'll bring you more on that as we get ready for the elections, which we are going to cover in depth because it is so important. Maybe I'll even see if I can get to Paris for the day of the new. What would it be called? Because it's not like a normal election. It's different. I don't know. Decision of the day, whatever. According to a report from motorsport.com, defending MotoGP world champion Jorge Martin's injuries suffered during last weekend's Qatar Grand Prix were more serious than we thought. On Sunday's episode of Grid Live Wrap-Up a few days ago, we mentioned that Simon Patterson's initial report of Martin breaking 6 ribs and suffering hemothorax, aka a collapsed lung. Now, since then, we've learned that Martin has 11 broken ribs and had a drainage tube inserted into his right side, with a source telling motorsport.com that he's in a lot of pain and the tube is bothering him. Now, sources also told them that Martin might have to stay in hospital in Qatar for about 2 or 3 weeks until he's well enough to fly home to Spain. A doctor who regularly treats MotoGP riders added that he expects Martin to miss at least 3 months of racing. The link to this article is in the video description below and graphic courtesy of MotoGP. Personally, having a hemothorax before, I can tell you how painful that is. And I didn't have any broken ribs added to that. I had 2. But 11 and a drainage tube, plus that, I don't know how on earth he is coping. But this is sort of where it all comes down, isn't it? He came back too soon. And Matt, starting with you, how concerning is this report about the seriousness of Martin's injuries? And should Aprilia consider shutting him down for the rest of the 2025 MotoGP season?
We talked about it last week, didn't we? The worst possible outcome was for this to happen to Jorge over the weekend, whether it be in practice or, as it turned out, in the race itself. Horrible injuries, and let's send our best wishes to him, because the picture he posted on Twitter or Instagram, wherever it was, I've seen it doing the rounds of him in his hospital bed in Qatar, is not nice. All bandaged up and tubes everywhere and all sorts of things. So we wish our best to Jorge for a speedy recovery. But what was it you said, Josh, on the show? In the MotoGP sort of championship run-in last year, this is the opportunity these guys have got. It was him and Pecco with Mark out of the he got his championship, and ever since that day when he came out of the box as the Martinator and shot the box to get the helmet out at Barcelona, it's just gone just terribly for the poor guy. Sit him out for the rest of the year, maybe. I don't know. I'm sure that Dorna / MotoGP will want him back as soon as possible for commercial reasons. They want their champion to be on the television and the number one plate or whatever to be, this is our world champion. But if he's wandering around with IVs and on crutches, and it's not a great look, is it? And we said last week when we were talking about Jorge coming back, Aprilia have not had a great start to the season. Bezzecchi's not been on the pace. Lorenzo Salvadori's come in to replace Martin and as the test rider. He's never going to be, particularly on the speed of the rest of the field, and it has been sort of languishing in that back quarter of the field for most of the season in terms of his race pace. And he's going to have a lot of work to do, like Lorenzo Salvadori, over the next couple of months. We got Jerez next weekend, then it's Le Mans, Mugello coming up. We get into the European races now, and they come thick and fast. So, going to be interesting to see what they do. Will they stick with Salvadori? Will they try and poach someone up from Moto2, perhaps? Will that work? The way it's going, you would say perhaps that's probably not such a bad, probably a bad idea, because that the first Aprilia, the second in the garage there alongside Bezzecchi, seems to have some sort of hex on it at the moment.
Yeah, real hate to see this situation happen with Jorge Martin. And I echo what you said, Matt. Definitely, we're going to be thinking about him and wishing him a speedy recovery, because he already, suffered 2 major injuries before this, and he had to have surgery twice. And then coming back from that, and you get injured again in the worst possible way. This was, like you said, this is the worst case scenario that could have happened for Jorge Martin. And we were hoping that it wouldn't happen, but unfortunately, it did. When he announced he was coming back and wasn't 100%. I know we just talked about this, leading up to the injury that happened. I was thinking maybe it's not the best idea to be racing when you're not at 100% or close to 100%. And I think we saw throughout the weekend, he was having a tough time, but he was really gutting out, trying to tough it out, make it through the race weekend, and try to get more laps on the Aprilia and build up pace throughout the weekend. And and obviously, when the race came around, wasn't really running particularly well, but also the Aprilia bike, is definitely on a different level than the Ducati, which is on a completely different zip code. So Martin was just doing the best that he could on the bike that he was on, just making laps and trying to do the best he can to get through any pain that he was feeling, from the recovery of the surgeries. And then down he goes like that. It was a really scary scene there to see him down in a lot of pain like that. And 6 broken ribs was not good at all. And then to see the report that they upgraded it to 11 broken ribs, that is absolutely brutal. And then a collapsed lung to go on top of that. And Matt, the picture you're talking about, I saw that on Jorge's Instagram page. Had a towel over his face. Then he was hooked up to this machine and that machine. Just such an awful scene to see him in that situation. So I can't imagine that he's going to be in a lot of pain for a while. And it sucks to hear, that he's going to probably have to be in the hospital for 2 to 3 weeks before he's able to fly, because if you try to fly home with the type of injury you have now, that would not be a wise decision at all. So want to make sure that he's healthy enough to travel home and continue rehab from there. And Josh, the last part of that question asks, should Aprilia consider sending him out the rest of the season? This may be considered a hot take, but I think they should. Like, there's really no point in trying to put him out there at this point, given the fact that the Aprilia bike, is not really the best. I would probably focus on developing the bike for 2026 and get a fully healthy Jorge Martin ready to go, because at this point he's 100% definitely not going to defend his world championship, and then he's probably not gonna be competing for podiums and race wins if he were to come back later on in the season. So like, what's the point of putting someone out there when they're not 100%? But to the point you made, Matt, it would not be a surprise if he returns later in the year, due to commercial reasons. But I feel like Jorge Martin should do the smart thing and make sure he's 100% healthy and get back to where he used to be health wise. Because right now, I just don't see any. When you take out all the business related factors to it, I don't see any point for him to come back this year at all.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick look to see if any news had come through from Aprilia. I have not sadly seen any updates since what we had yesterday. Usually they would keep us updated if there was any surgeries or any health updates, but nothing has come through on the WhatsApp chain as well. So if anything happens, I'll keep you updated on that. But we send our best to Jorge Martin, who even I said at the time, arguably it was the wrong decision to come back and try Qatar, which is the hardest race of the year with the heat, the fact it's a flat circuit, and you need to use your arms a lot on that circuit, and it was the wrong choice. So let's hope he recovers quickly and gets back to winning race ASAP, but does it in his own time. And for God's sake, heal, man, heal. Now, here's Matt White with our latest DPI update.
Thank you, Josh. Massive weekend in the Grid Endurance Performance Index this weekend. Week 3 of scoring for 2025. Let's give you the rundown of where we were with scoring races and who won them, more importantly. We'll start in Japan, where the Super GT Championship got underway at Okayama, the former TT Aida circuit from Formula One days. And there is the car that won last year's champions in GT 500, Team Toms, with Shota Sube and Kenta Yamashita getting the victory aboard their Supra to kick off their championship defence in the best way possible. GT 300 was won by the K2 R&D Leon Racing Mercedes of Naoyo Gamu and Togo Suganami, getting the victory there aboard the black Mercedes. Across the water in Malaysia, the GT World Challenge Asia Championship got underway with 2 races on the weekend. On Saturday, there on screen, the Porsche getting the victory, Bo Wang and Hong Li Yi getting the win for Origin Motorsport on Saturday. And then a big story, as I sort of mentioned earlier on Sunday, with Johor Racing getting the first win for the Corvette GT3 in this championship. Alexander Sims and Prince Jeffrey Ibrahim getting the win for the Johor 888 Corvette team. So big congratulations to them. They were the winners on Sunday. Skip back a day to Saturday evening in the south of France at Paul Ricard, where the GT World Challenge Europe got underway on Saturday evening with the first race of the season, 6 hours in Paul Ricard through the afternoon and into the darkness. And on screen at the winners, WRT, with Charles Weerts, Kelvin van der Linde and Hugo de Wilde getting the victory overall and in the pro category. In gold, we talked about this team a couple of weeks ago when it was announced that Verstappen Racing would be part of the GT World Challenge Europe with their Aston Martin. Verstappen and Aston Martin, maybe links there. Thierry Vermeulen, Harry King and Chris Lullum, the driving trio in that car, getting the victory. They finished 9th overall. Silver Cup was won by Paradine Competition, another BMW team, James Kellett, Charles Clark and Pedro Ibrahim. That's the car on the left of the picture there, not the red and yellow Ferrari. They were the winners in Silver Cup and 18th overall. And in the bronze category, Kessel Racing getting the win for Justin Blattner, Dennis Marshall and Conrad Larson, finishing 26th overall. We've left the biggest one until last because that was, in terms of the EPI anyway, it was the shortest race of the weekend, but it was the biggest one in terms of the EPI. On Saturday night or Saturday evening, in Long Beach, a third win on the spin for Felipe Nasr and Nick Tandy in the number 7 Porsche. There it is, crossing the line to pick up its third win from 3 races on the season in IMSA. They are absolutely rolling, that team, and they were the winners on Saturday in GTP. In GTD, there was another win for Porsche, and it was the AO Racing Rexy-mobile, the 177. We normally see that in the pro category, but they don't run the pro category cars at Long Beach, so they thought they'd stick it into GTD and give it a run with Lawrence Vanfor and Johnny Edgar at the wheel. And you know what? They only went and won the race. So they were the winners from the weekend. This is what it's done to the scoring. And we've got a headline here because Felipe Nasr and Nick Tandy go straight to the top with their 3 wins. That is the highest score ever recorded in the Grid Endurance Performance Index. We're in our 4th year now of doing this. And that is the highest score we've ever seen. 3 wins from 3. And they've got bonus points for winning the long races at Sebring and at Daytona. So that is why they won 26.2. Lawrence Vanfor, who was the leader, even though he won a race at the weekend in GTD, slips to 4th with the way that we do our scoring. So he slides down behind fellow Belgian Charles Weerts, who was one of the winners there in that BMW at Paul Ricard. A couple of other movers and shakers inside the top 10. Matthew Jaminet, he was 2nd with Matt Campbell in the other Porsche. It was a 1-2 for Porsche with the 7 beating the 6 at Long Beach. So Jaminet goes up into 9th, and Porsche Junior Dutchman Maurice Schuring also slides in to the top 10 for the first time. That's the top 10. Here's how the top 50 stands through 3 weeks of scoring. A little bit of a quieter weekend, and that's not surprising considering how busy last weekend was all round in the world of motorsport. But we still have 2 big endurance races in the Grid Endurance Performance Index this week. The Spa 12 hours over the weekend for the Creventic 24-hour series in Belgium, and at Imola, the second round of the World Endurance Championship, the first 6-hour race of the season for the WEC. So that to whet your appetite over the weekend, along with what's happening at Rockingham and in Saudi Arabia with the Formula One Grand Prix. So another busy weekend for the Grid EPI. We'll give you the runners and riders in terms of the winners in the segment, as always, next week. Now time to hand over to Kobe. Plenty more headlines from the week that was.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. Here's a familiar name. Spencer Gallagher is making his return to the ARCA Menard series after spending several years away from big-time stock car racing. Gallagher will drive the number 24 Allegiant Chevrolet for Sigma Performance Services alongside teammate Tyler Rife, starting with this weekend's ARCA East race at Rockingham Speedway. He'll also compete in the ARCA National races at Talladega, Kansas, and Charlotte, but in the number 23 Chevrolet. Gallagher said he couldn't be more excited to return to ARCA competition, the place where he cut his teeth as a young driver, adding that teaming up with a competitive organization gives him tremendous confidence about getting back on track and competing for wins in the months ahead. Graphic courtesy of Sigma Performance Services. Flow Racing and the Cars Tour are teaming up to make this year's Throwback Classic at Hickory Motor Speedway the biggest night in pavement late model racing history. That will be a record-breaking purse of more than $200,000 as the Throwback Classic presented by Flow Racing will be streamed exclusively on Saturday, August 2nd. It will also be the richest purse ever for both divisions of the Cars Tour, with it being the second event in series history to pay $50,000 to win the late model stock race and the first to pay $2,500 to start, while the pro late model race will pay $30,000 to win and $1,500 to start. One of the series' co-owners, Dale Earnhardt Jr., said this payout is simply incredible for the series drivers and teams, with the goal being to continue growing the series by putting as many eyes as possible on it. Graphic courtesy of the Cars Tour. Motorsports analyst and TV host Rutledge Wood is trading his microphone for a steering wheel when he makes his racing debut in the SRO Toyota GR Cup Series. Wood will make his series debut next weekend at Circuit of the Americas, driving a number 18 Toyota for Precision Racing LA. He'll make additional starts at Road America, Barber Motorsports Park, and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course. Wood has been a longtime Team Toyota ambassador, and he's currently entering his 12th year, leading several SEMA builds, which includes the Superbird and the TRD Pro Fundra. Wood said he couldn't be more excited to jump behind the wheel in the driver's seat for a total of 4 race weekends in the Toyota GR Cup Series, and having the opportunity to drive the Toyota GR86 is a dream come true. Photo and graphic courtesy of Precision Racing LA. Hyundai announced plans to work with Robert Wickens to help him make his debut in the 24 Hours of Nürburgring on June 21st. Wickens is going through the qualification process to compete in one of the most challenging endurance races in the world in a Hyundai Elantra and TCR car. They'll also use the new hand controls developed by Bosch that will offer performance enhancements, including improved response rate and richer diagnostics. Wickens said that as an athlete, he's constantly seeking ways to push himself and explore new opportunities to grow, and he's thrilled to compete in the demanding 24-hour endurance race at a track known as the Green Hell. Photo courtesy of Brian Herta Autosport. And after making his NASCAR Cup Series debut last weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway, Xfinity Series regular Jesse Love will make 2 more Cup starts. Love will drive the number 62 Chevrolet for Beard Motorsports at Texas and Indianapolis with sponsorship from C4 Ultimate Energy. A few days ago at Bristol, Love competed in his first Cup Series race, driving the number 33 Chevrolet for Richard Childress Racing. Love had an impressive qualifying run after starting 19th, but ended up finishing 31st, 5 laps down on a day of learning in Thunder Valley for the 20-year-old driver from California. He thanked the Beard family for giving him the opportunity to continue getting experience at this level and learning the Cup car, adding that running at Texas and Indy will allow him to gain knowledge of how this car works on different tracks. Graphic courtesy of Beard Motorsports. And for the second consecutive week, we're going to end our news segment with some sad news. So last Thursday, Hendrick Motorsports announced the sudden passing of the team's director of racing communications, the man you see on the screen right here, John Edwards. Through NASCAR Hall of Famer and current Hendrick executive Jeff Gordon's career, Edwards worked closely alongside him as his trusted public relations representative since the mid-1990s. However, in 2021, Edwards became an official Hendrick team member and was working closely with Kyle Larson at the time of his passing. Edwards won the NASCAR Public Relations Representative of the Year Award, the National Motorsports Press Association Ken Patterson Helping Others Award, and the Jim Chapman Award. Last weekend, in the most fitting way, Kyle Larson won the Xfinity and Cup Series races at Bristol as the organization dedicated each emotional victory to Edwards, graphic courtesy of Hendrick Motorsports. And right here, Jeff Gordon, who worked alongside Edwards for many, many years, said, I'm devastated by the loss of my dear friend John. For almost 3 decades, we were side by side through every high and low, every celebration, and every challenge. He was one of the most loyal, hardworking, and selfless people I've ever known, and I will forever be grateful for his immeasurable impact on my life and my career. My heart is with John's family and everyone who loved him. He was truly one of a kind. There, Jeff shared a photo of him with the late John Edwards, and also Jeff Dickerson from Spire Motorsports, who was a friend of John, wrote this statement saying, "I am absolutely stunned and gutted with the loss of John Edwards. My heart is with his family and everyone at Hendrick Motorsports. He treated everyone like they were the most important part of his day. It didn't matter what the issue was or who you were treated like gold. John might have been the most interesting person in the garage with his sneaky sense of humor, his intricate knowledge of limitless topics, his level of sophistication, his worldliness, his open-mindedness, and his ability to get things done with no question asked. He could both be professional and mischievous, bitterly honest, and while also being ridiculously caring and empathetic. In the coming hours and days, there will be an avalanche of kind words and tributes written about John. As is often the case when someone like him passes, what made John different is that every one of those tributes is 100% truth, not politeness. He had this ability to always leave you in a better spot than he found you. Countless people in the sport looked up to him, and this is a devastating loss for many in their industry." And that right there, from, as I said, from Jeff Dickerson from Spire Motorsports. And unfortunately, the sad news doesn't stop there, because we have more sad news to share with the passing of legendary journalist Al Pearce, who we lost at age 82 last week as well. From 1969 to 2004, the native of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, worked for the Newsport News Daily Press. He also worked for Auto Week. His work continued for this motorsports media outlet after he retired from the Daily Press. Pearce was one of the most successful journalists in motorsports who won prestigious awards such as the American Motorsports Media Award of Excellence, and he was also inducted into the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Before getting into motorsports journalism, Pearce was a U.S. Army and Vietnam War veteran who later wrote 13 motorsports-related books, and his work also appeared in magazines. He also covered 56 consecutive Daytona 500s during his successful career that lasted for many decades. It's been a difficult week for the NASCAR industry with the losses of Shiggy Hattori, who we talked about last week, and now the loss of John Edwards and Al Pearce. And on behalf of everyone here at Grid Network, we continue to extend our deepest condolences to Hattori's families and friends, including the family and friends of John Edwards and Al Pearce, and may all of their memories be a blessing. Graphic courtesy of Fox Sports. And with that said, I'm going to turn over to Matt for Hots and Knots.
Thank you, Kobe. Before we do Hots and Knots, just a quick reminder about Pick a Winner. No graphics for you tonight. We have a different leader, though. I have been overhauled by last year's champion, Matt B, over the weekend. So he is now the new leader, the second leader of the season. This weekend we have the Cup Series race. Oh, no, we don't have the Cup Series race because Cup Series off. Just the F1 race for Jeddah at the Saudi Grand Prix is the only Pick a Winner point available this weekend. So get your predictions in before the green flag flies or the lights go out or whatever it is at Jeddah on Sunday. Use the hashtag Pick a Winner across all of the Grid Network TV social medias. Let's roll Josh back in. Yes, quite literally. Quickly from them before we get into our hots and nots, he says the FIA is sounding like FIFA at the moment. I told you guys weeks ago the FIA president is becoming the Seb Blatter of motorsport. Yeah, you're onto something there, Denver. It's absolutely right that. And John says you forgot about Casey Kane doing the Rockingham race at the weekend. Not sure we've forgotten about it, John, but he is in the race, which is good to see him back, and hopefully he can do a good result for as we said before, a sellout crowd at Rockingham on Saturday afternoon for Xfinity. You've had, Mr. Birch, a busy, since we did the show last week, basically, you apart from probably this morning, you've not stopped, have you?
No, and let me tell you something. I got in at 10:45 last night. I had 15 minutes debriefing with the family about how it all went, and then I went to bed, which was very kindly some fresh sheets had been put on. I put my head on the pillow, and I didn't wake up until 1 p.m. this afternoon. I was worn out. I don't think we literally don't think we stopped at all. Thursday last week was prep day. Friday was okay. It was busy, but it was nothing we couldn't handle.
Yeah.
Saturday was, my God, we had 7 overlapping streams for about 6 hours. Wow. It was mad. Didn't stop until 3 a.m. and then we started again at 8. And Sunday was a bit better. Went off air at end of the NASCAR race, which is about 11 our time. Went to bed, got a decent night's sleep, woke up, and then immediately started to panic about media day for touring cars. Planned all that. Went to bed because I had to be up at 3 a.m. to catch my train, which was at 5. And I went to bed at 9. And kept looking at the clock, couldn't get to sleep. And it got to like 1 a.m. I think I got an hour. And I don't even think I got that because I think my brain just went. Got up, went to Donington, did 8 hours trackside live with the team. We split it sort of like an hour and 20 with us in 3 segments throughout the day. So like morning, then a lunch break, trackside live, that sort of thing. Went really well, actually. Got a lot of access, interviewed every driver, which was a big tick. Got Nick Hamilton by accident, turned around, there he was, got him interviewed. And then Anthony Hamilton was just behind him, which ticked off a personal thing I wanted to do, which was after he thanked Isaac Hadjar in Australia. I said in commentary, I hope I get the chance to thank him for returning a bit of humanity to Formula One. And he was a bit taken aback when I said that, and he was very kind. And he's going to be there again in 2 weeks, so I'll check in with him and Nick. And I asked him, obviously, about Lewis. He's loving Ferrari, and they think they could get a win this year. A Grand Prix, that is.
Yeah.
Only saw David Addison. No other of the ITG team were there. So hopefully catch up with them. But Media Centre was welcoming me as ever. I kept running into Emily, who runs Touring Car Media. Sort of like Martin and Tanya situation going on there because we keep jumping interviews. But and then we discovered that BMW got something because we went through their garage to get to their drivers during the lunch break because they were doing the signing in the pit lane. And I got hassled for our media passes by the BTC's media, but they were in our back pocket and I couldn't get to it because I had all my equipment on. I said, I've got one. I was pointing to my back pocket, but he kept hovering over me. I was like, right, I'm not being in here. So I went out again. And I went out thinking, what have they got? And then we were trackside during one of our breaks when the World Fever was taking over at Chris and Alan on commentary. And I noticed through the last corner that BMW, last year they'd lowered the suspension, but they were struggling with the rear. And they were so planted to the chicane. It was unbelievable. And JT had his camera and he spotted the rear of the car. The aerodynamics has changed. And instead of going straight down on the bumper like every other car does, this is curved. So it's nice with the ear. And they've got a brand new diffuser, and they've been testing out with all the 4 cars, 1 slit, no slit, 3 slits, 4 slits in the diffuser to see which is quicker. And they were the slowest team in testing because they were sandbagging. And then I was so happy I noticed that. And then everybody else going to the paddock when I got there said, yeah, they've got something. They're not letting any media in. They're not letting anything. So I think I got in a bit of trouble when I went through their garage at the lunch break. But yeah, BMW have got something. So they're sandbagging again. We'll see what that is in 2 weeks. Flash Gordon's happy with the car. He's lucky to be back. Nick's doing well. He did spin and caused a red flag, but he got that back into the garage. No damage. And everyone seems really pumped up, and everybody's happy that the hybrid's gone, and it is back to synthetic fuel. The cars are louder, they're lighter, and it's just back to action. So it was a really good day yesterday, and yeah, I'm glad I've stopped today, but it's all back to go tomorrow.
Yeah, busy couple of weeks at Donington. Your touring car day yesterday. This weekend, over the Easter weekend, they've got the British Superbike test / media presentation. Then the weekend after that, it's touring cars round 1. So if you're in the Donington Park area, there's plenty to get on board with over the next couple of weeks. I have a very hot, but I'm going to hold my hot until we've done other hots from the weekend. And I've only watched the Grand Prix from what was, as you said, just the most crazy weekend of stuff. Hots from the Grand Prix, I thought. Haas, very good. Both of them. I kept looking at it going, surely Ocon's got to stop again at whatever stage of the race. He was running in the top 6, 7. And then it changed to pit stops 1. Oh, he has stopped. I missed that one. So that was good. Behrman's drive, I thought, was exceptional, coming from the back of the field to grab a point. Gasly, excellent weekend for Alpine. And Oscar Piastri won the race, although no one saw it because he was barely shown on television. But he's now leading the championship, and the pole winning in the race streak continues.
It has not stopped, is it? Was it 5 races for us this year,
including the end of last year? Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. So how long? We just need an overtake, and we might get that this weekend in Jeddah because Aprilia bought the softest tires, and they weren't supposed to, so they have changed it. So we should get some more pit stops and overtaking. Strange when we're saying Pirelli and durable tire. It's like it doesn't really make sense, does it? It's bizarre. It's like we need usable tires, and hopefully we'll get that very, very soon. The SC, that's the wrong one. What's it called? The C0 tire is coming in Monaco, I want to say.
Probably
so that's only a couple of races time. Yeah.
And of course, we've got the mandatory stops at Monaco, haven't we, coming up as well? So
unless it's wet.
Unless it's wet. You guarantee my hot.
Oh God, yeah. My hot. Where were we? MotoGP was entertaining. I thought the sprints was good. Grand Prix was entertaining. Moto 3 was epic. Can't wait for you to get to that one, Matthew. Okay. There wasn't a lot of hots because it was just such a busy weekend. My mind's gone a bit blank. World Superbikes again was a good classic weekend. A lot of surprises there. Good to see that there was a lot of coverage and support for the Women's Championship. I'm trying to think of another hot from the F1. There wasn't really much. It's tricky. It's what we thought was going to be like a wow. Look at this race season. It's very much a whimper at the moment. But Bahrain was good. I enjoyed it.
Off the back of Suzuka last week, which was pretty poor, as we talked about. I thought it was a decent race. Right, do you want my hot that's all of hot and hotness and hot? It's a loosely based motorsport hot. Now, you're sitting down, I'm sitting down. Kobe is sitting down. I hope everyone who's watching is sitting down, because my hot this week is Donald Trump. Yes, no, let me explain. Because at the end of last week, when all of the tariff nonsense was nonsense and all of it on the television, every 5 minutes talking about the tariffs, who was standing behind Donald J. Trump? Lawrence Vanfor, Joseph Newgarden, Joey Logano, Roger Penske, Tim Cindric. every time they cut to this, it was on the day that they had all the Penske guys at the White House. And he loosely boasts motorsport. For every time he was talking about Taro, standing behind him was Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney. And I thought that was bloody brilliant that was happening while we had motorsport people in the background. I just thought it was very, very cool. Not the tariff stuff, that's absolute BS. But to have them guys standing behind him looking like, oh, we're not supposed to be here while this is going on. It was quite funny. But yes, hot this week, President Trump.
What's hot? Supercars able to be physical and drivers standards. I've got my glasses on. You take it.
Supercars able to be physical and driver standards advisor only stepping in when needed. What's not Bristol race so boring? I actually watched a very good IndyCar race, which again is on my list of things to catch up with.
Yeah. I'll add to that because me and Matthew and Jack were commentating on the Bristol race, and JT and Tom were commentating on the IndyCar race. And me and Matthew were very jealous because it looked like a good IndyCar race. And then every time we heard back from it and we were watching alongside, everyone said it was boring. It looked decent to us. I mean, we were watching Bristol, which was like, well, being forced to sit through the opening, just wicked again. But I don't know, it looked good to me. And everyone said it was boring. So maybe it's like literally being chose which leg would you like to have amputated. So
as
not much either.
As the chat in the USRN group chat went this week, you don't watch Monaco and Long Beach and maybe Macau for good racing.
Yeah.
Really. If we get a good race, then that's a bonus. But it's all about the ambience and the location and everything else.
That's why I chose Bristol. I think I chose wrong. When that clash came up, they said, "Which one do you want to cover?"
Sounded particularly terrible. I think I'm going to plan on watching that tomorrow. I might just have it on ×2 or ×6 speed to get through it fairly quick.
Well, Buxton sound even more like a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Because I say, I've only watched the Grand Prix, so I don't really have much to report back on from the weekend because it was a busy one outside of watching television for me.
And I can't really not Jorge Martin with him being injured,
well,
but
no.
he shouldn't have come back. It wasn't obvious.
Being on the beach on Friday afternoon was hot for me in April. Very good.
Oh, I did see that actually. Yes, yeah. Me being a klutz and leaving my glasses at my sister's house yesterday after Donington Park, and so I was playing with my niece and nephew, and I put them down at the side next to the telly, and forgot to put them back in my pocket, which means I've done this entire show with the guys up on the big screen so I can see them, and then our script zoomed in so much, and me having to focus on every word because I'm short-sighted and words blur. So I'm fine looking around, but words I can't. So I've done incredibly well, I think. And if I've mucked up any words tonight, I do apologise. But I think we have wrapped up. Super not. Danica's in Saudi this weekend, I think. So there you go.
Oh, is she?
Yeah, that's what I heard. That was supposed to be her first race, but you know. So, taking a look at our upcoming schedule. On Saturday, our Grid Live pre-race, previewing Formula One's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. That will also be on, so be sure to tune into that. Sunday Grid Live wrap-up is 90 minutes after the F1 race in Jeddah. Monday, Grid Encore at 7 p.m. Eastern, and that is going to be recapping the ARCA East and the Trucks and Xfinity races at Rockingham, including, of course, Formula 2 in Saudi Arabia. So, and hot Slater debut performance history if race 200 for F2 with June and just the outrageous racing we had, including 3 wide through 10-12 Bahrain. Only spoilers. I haven't seen those races yet. I'm doing a mat and watching them tomorrow before this weekend because I have not had time. I'm so far behind when I do my notes for the weekend. So, also, I think a hot to Omi making his grid debut on the Encore show was fantastic as well, and leading our F2 and F3 coverage over on JBM as well. So well done to Omi. Welcome to the grid team as well. So please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for helping us reach 1,600 subscribers. Now we're inching closer to our milestone of 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air. And you can follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Michelle, Robin, David, and Matthew to invest each month in the Grid Network. And we encourage you to join these fine folks to help us keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our team to the track more often and continue growing our media outlet. The link to that is in the video description. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want. And consider buying a specific on-air personalized cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air. For Kobe Lambeth and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, I'm Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.